What's good? What's good? Various markets like the car market and the food industry, they are dealing with some major economic crunches. A lot of restaurants are going out of business or they're closing a lot of businesses. This is even hitting retailers. The economy is due for a crash. It's going to crash hard. Why is it going to crash hard? Some people like to blame the people who don't want to work. I think that's absurd, but I get it. Of course, people do not want to work in this society. When the government pays more in various unemployment and social security benefits, there's food stamps, or SNAP as it's called in Washington State. I don't know if that's federal or not. But in conjunction with the fact that the cost of living is so out of control that it's pointless to work. It's pointless to exist. I see so many homeless people. So many homeless people. But I also see a lot of unutilized land. I also see a lot of businesses that are vacant because they are unable to find tenants to pay the absurd rents that they have to pay. And so I really, at this point, I do not blame people for not wanting to work, because work is supposed to yield societal resources. So before we had modernity, before we had civilization, work was hunting and gathering, building your shelter, protecting your tribe. As we evolved, as we civilized, technology, modernity, these things were supposed to make the lives of humans easier. And I do believe they could, and they would, if we did not have this thing called the government, which creates our fake money and then inflates it or devalues it. The same thing, inflation is devaluation. So the dollar is now worth, literally, I've seen a few different statistics, but from 1913, when they implemented the Federal Reserve, key date there, very key date. The Federal Reserve and the federal income tax, since 1913, which, didn't we have the Great Depression shortly after that? The dollar has lost 90 to 99% of its value. Just think about that. Think about that. So when we talk about the cost of living is so high because the dollar is worthless now. Why is the dollar worthless? Because of central banking, because of reserve fractional banking, because of the government's monopoly on the issuance of currency, because of the government's increasing tax burden. The greater the tax burden becomes, the debt, the national debt, the more of that burden we have to endure as the people. And it's so frustrating because I constantly talk about the oligarchs, the ruling class, the elitists, the globalists. It is so clear to me that we have this group of people manipulating us, and yet so many people cannot see it. So many people are so brainwashed that they think, oh no, the government's fine, the government's not the bad guy. Or they think that it's this one left or right segment of the government that's truly the bad guy. And they're wrong, because it's the whole freaking thing. I often talk about this as well, like, why is the cost of living so high? Why is housing so expensive? Because there are restrictions and regulations around building. There are tons of inspections that need to happen. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy. The same thing with like the education system. Why is college education so expensive? Because there are a lot of administrators who don't really provide value in the education sphere. They just keyboards, diversity, equity, bigot. I don't know, this video is not really structured, but when the point of work is to obtain a home and a thriving life, and you can work your ass off and not get either of those, I don't blame people for not wanting to work. I really don't. If you are an employer and you are struggling to find employees, the answer is simple. Pay them more. It's really that simple. If you are an employer and you are unable to be profitable, are you not charging enough to your customers? Can your customers not afford to pay more? Why can your customers not afford to pay more? Because they don't have money. Because the government is stealing all of your freaking money. The ruling class, the elites, whatever you want to call them. And if you are an employer and you are profitable but struggling to find employees, fucking dig into your profits, bro or madam. We need to revolutionize the way businesses are owned and operated. And this is me as an anarchist saying that. I think a lot of businesses should move towards more profit sharing and towards more ownership stakes, ownership opportunities. I'm a huge fan of like co-ops, but voluntarily. This is all voluntary. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. If you just want to open a business and pay someone and whatnot, that's fine. But when you hit a point where you can no longer find employees, ask yourself, what can you do differently? Obviously, you need to vote better. And voting isn't going to get us out of it, but I do think it will put us on a path to get out of it. I'm a big fan of Vivek Ramaswamy, who wants to just drastically reduce the size of the government, which is the biggest thing you can do right now to fix the economy. Just get them out of the fucking way. Because then they're going to get out of employers' ways. They're going to get out of builders' ways. People are going to be able to build houses. People are going to afford to employ people. People are going to afford to be able to exist. The reason things are so expensive right now is because of the government. It is not the capitalist class. Capitalists don't like the government. Capitalists hate the government. Do you know who likes the government? Fascists. And I'm going to do a whole nother video talking about the deeply, deeply disingenuous nature of the communists and how they refuse to acknowledge that capitalists and the government do not get along. It's actually fascists. They refuse to acknowledge that this is fascism, not capitalism. Because if they acknowledged the truth, they would have to reassess their own beliefs of communism, which require a huge, ginormous bureaucratic apparatus to conduct. Because if government is the central problem in our current paradigm, it's probably not going to be the central solution either. But communists just cannot wrap their brains around that. Because they're brainwashed by the propaganda, by the elitists who know that if they pursue this collectivist ideology, they will always have a subservient working class. So workers of the world, we must rise up, not against the capitalist, but against the fascist. All right, much love, y'all.